What started out as quite a majestic red rust-free looking Porsche has now turned into this. Now welcome back to the Porsche 911 series. Now in the previous episode we removed this entire quarter. We continued on the fabrication on this car. Well, in this episode I'm going to show you how we've got to this stage here, and it's got some major fabrication in this back section, in this top and the front as well. Now I'm quite out of breath because it was raining earlier and we can't really do audio when it's raining, so I've literally darted to get this done before it rains again. So let's get into it. Don't forget, subscribe, hit that like button, and yeah, let's get into it. First things first, we need to loosen these bolts and pull this plate off of the side of the tub so we don't damage anything when we're cutting. And then it's down to the wire wheel on the grinder to tidy up all the rust, get rid of all of the loose stuff and expose exactly what we need to repair. As you can see, it's not looking good for this Porsche, and now you can see me cutting off this kidney bowl to expose all the hidden rust behind there and all the structural work we need to do to the tub of the car. Here you can see me peeling back this foam so I don't set fire to the whole entire car, and I've also just inserted a piece of sheet steel to protect anything that's inside that engine bay. Straight into the thick of it, cutting bits of the tub out to get rid of all of that rust. Next is to transfer it onto a piece of paper. Get the paper cut out. And then transfer it onto a piece of sheet steel. Here you can see me using the guillotine to roughly cut out the shape and then fine tune it. Now you can see me shaping the panel up and cutting some relief cuts to obviously get that shape in there, just like this panel. Now I'm offering the panel up and getting it tacked in. Once it's tacked in, I can then shape it and push it to where I need it to be. Once I've finished welding, I then get a wire wheel and clean all those welds up. And now I'm getting onto this back section, which is ridiculously rusty. There's many layers to this back section, but this is a very important structural part of the car because it's part of the back chassis rail. This is the second section and the second layer that I'm cutting out, and you can see inside that chassis rail it's not looking good. I'm removing these bolts, but even they are rusted on, so I've got to use some brute force. Now I'm removing the bad sections and all the rust. And here you can see it's not much better inside. Now I'm cleaning it all up and exposing all of the bad metal. And then we need to cut out all that bad metal and replace it with good. Here you can see me blowing out the chassis rail just to make sure all of the rust has disappeared. And now I'm refabricating that piece on the inner section of the chassis rail, which is quite thick steel. Here I'm using Dinatrol's rust converter and then U-Pol's weld-through primer. Very good stuff, I'd recommend it, links in the description. Now finally I managed to get the first piece to this puzzle back into this chassis rail. Now I'm putting the second piece in and getting it welded in. And this is the reason why restorations take so long. It's because it's just piece after piece after piece. And on goes that last piece. Next is on to this top piece. As you can see, it's pitted. And it's quite an intricate piece to refabricate this one because it's got quite a lot of contour curves on it. So here you can see me cutting out the piece of sheet steel. I'm tracing out the shape. And now you can see me tracing and trying to replicate the original. Then time to trim and shape it to the original, and you can see here I'm offering it up to the original to make sure that it suits. Next is to get a couple more bends into this panel using the anvil. And then I can make the piece that actually sits underneath it. Now I can get some holes drilled in that section, and from that transition you can see the difference between the old and the new. You can see that we've actually managed to get some decent shape into this corner section. Now it's time for this end capping plate, which again I'm using some paper. I'm making a paper template and then I can transfer it onto some sheet steel. But I've got to remember on this, it's also got a border which folds back on itself. Here I'm using the bender just to put a 90-degree angle in it, and you can see I've got some relief cuts there, so then I can use the anvil to make that corner piece. Now comes this last section. Here you can see I'm starting to tack this piece on, and then I'm using a hammer and chisel to push that panel back to make sure that it's flush against the chassis rail. Now it's time to clean it up and get some primer on it. Now how much better does that look? What an absolute mission that was. Now, investigating this, as you know, everything was just rotten. I mean, even this thick plate here and the one behind it was just rotten. So I had to cut everything out just to get into that chassis rail to repair the chassis rail. But you've got this section down here, that's one. You've got this, which is two. You've got this inner, which goes all the way down and forms the bottom of the chassis rail, which is three. And I had to repair every single one of them, as well as this, as well as the end plate, as well as this, as well as that down there. Yeah. But what I do want to do now is I want to concentrate on that section over there. I'm using the bender to get 2 bends in this panel. And then you can see me using the anvil to actually shape the panel, just like you can see here. Now I'm prepping the panel so the welds are not contaminated with any paint or residue. Then I can finally get this panel welded in. Right, done quite a lot of work so far in this episode, but I'm going to continue going. Now, I'm going to start looking at this front section. Now, I've done a little bit of work off camera on the rear strut and on this strut tower as well, but that's all sorted now, that's done. It was only 2 little, little pieces. Anyway, I'm going to get onto this. Now, from the first or the second episode, you'd see that this is just absolutely mangled inside here. It's had some bad patch repairs on here. So what I need to do is take all of this off and see exactly what's behind there. But that's going to be a task in itself, because I think they've probably welded these patch repairs onto this actual big situation here. It's the same on the other side, but I'm going to make some reference points so I know exactly where this goes back on. I'll then try and cut it off and see exactly how far I get. First, I need to take the battery out and I need to get rid of all of these lines. And yeah, let's just do it. Let's do it, man. First comes out the battery. Then it gives me access to that inside section. Oh yes, now that is what I'm talking about. You can clearly see that there's multiple patches in this area. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Anyway, I'm just going to cut all of this out and make one big piece that covers all of this. I'm going to have to probably cut just above these holes, remake these holes, cut across here. There is a panel that's behind there on the inside, so I don't want to cut too far. Cut all this out, expose that panel, because I think that panel is somewhere here and it's been spot welded across here. And yeah, have this looking a lot better. But before I do this, I'm going to jump onto the other side and take that off as well, because I want to see what's behind there, and just so I can consider my options. So yeah, I'll leave this for now. I'll get onto that one, and then we'll probably jump back to here and try and sort this mess out. Same goes for this side. I'm removing all the lines that go through the panel and then taking off this bumper support, and it reveals yet more rust. The joys. Now I'm cleaning the panel up just to see how far the extent of the rust goes. This side, not great as well. Now, it was very difficult to get those pieces off because, like I said, all these patch panels were welded to that from the other side. And I didn't want to cut all of it out. I want to see exactly what I've got and try and utilize as much of the original as possible. Now, as you can see, this has got a big panel that's been lap welded in there. All this inside did look okay until I destroyed it. But it did look okay, but it was obviously covered in filler, fiberglass and paint. So that is salvageable. Now you can see this top is good, this bottom is good, this side is good, this side is good. It's just literally just this inside here. So before I get into that, this has been staring me in the face for God knows how long. Now all this rusty crustiness up here needs replacing. So before I get too far on that, I want to replace this on the top, same on the other side, and get all of this sorted. And then I'm going to move back onto this and get all these panels refabricated into here. And yeah, there's a couple of shapes and stuff that's going on. But I can obviously put that shape into there, that's not a problem. But yeah, like I say, I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to get a piece refabricated in here for this. And then that should sort out all of that pitting crustiness that's going on. So first things first, I get it tidied up. I use the wire wheel, remove all that surface rust and see exactly what I need to repair. Now I'm marking out the repair location, so then I can measure it out and transfer it onto some sheet steel. I then use the guillotine to cut the sheet steel out. I can use the bender to put a 90-degree bend in it. Here you can see this panel rocking backwards and forwards, and that's because the original has got a bend in it. So I use the stretcher to stretch that panel and make a slight bend in it to replicate the original. I can see it sits on and there's no rocking. And then I can start shaping it to the original by using a plastic hammer and pushing that panel around to the original. I'm basically using the original as a template. Now I'm marking out the cut and removing the panel, and now I'm cutting it out. Now I'm using some primer inside the cavity and on the back of the repair panel to make sure it's adequately protected. And now you can see me drilling some holes so that I can get it welded to the original. Here I'm making sure I get some vice grips on either side of the plug welds, and for each plug weld I'm actually using the hammer to make sure that the panel is up against the original. Next comes the final bit of welding, and then I can take it down with a wire wheel. Now for the other side, I'm not going to cover this in as much depth, but there was a small repair panel to doing this. So I've cut out the sheet steel, I prime the sheet steel, I get it welded in, I can then grind it all down, bada bing bada boom. Now I'm moving on to this front section. Now there's been a lot of repairs in this and it just looks like a Frankenstein disaster. So I'm getting the old cut out so I can see exactly how much I need to replace. Next comes cleaning it up and getting some primer on there. Now I can use a paper template to trace out exactly what I need. I can get that cut out. And transfer it onto some sheet steel. I put a bend in there and I can actually shape this to what I need it to be. And I've used this Porsche as an example for what shape I need to put into this panel. As you can see, this panel is slightly bigger than what it needs to be, but I can insert that panel. I can make sure it's in the right position. I can get it tacked in. And now you can see me cutting through that panel to make sure that it matches the original and it's butt welded to the original. Oh yeah. Done-ish, kind of. Right, so there's three things that I do need to do on this, as you've probably already seen. There's this that someone's decided to weld round and leave really bad, so I'm going to tidy that up. There's a little bit on this front section that I need to fabricate, you know, that little L section there. That's not too much of an issue. And I've got holster drilling here as well. However, I'm going to do that probably off camera because I'm going to get into the thick of it on getting that other section done. So this is all done now. Almost, apart from them bits. I'm going to get onto this section on this side and get all this welded in, and then get everything tidied up on the inside, yada yada yada, bada bing, bada boom, and then it'll be mostly done. Yeah. Okay. You can see me drilling out the old spot welds to make it easier to remove this panel. I'm then using what's left of a cutting disc to cut that panel out, and a hammer and chisel to gently tease it off of the original. Now I can use this cut off section to transfer it onto some sheet steel and get it cut out to make the new one. The shape on this side is slightly different to the other side, and you can see I'm using the anvil here to get that shape in there. I'm then going to use a similar method to the other side, get it tacked on, cut through both pieces of sheet steel, and then I can get it butt welded. Well, unfortunately, I ran out welding gas on all the welders, unfortunately. So I'm gonna have to go and get some, but you know what that means? That means that that's gonna be it for this episode. So do check us out in the next episode where we're gonna continue on this section here, and we're gonna get those sills cut off because there's a lot of rusty surprises underneath the sills, and also the bottom of that rear quarter to reveal that kidney bowl, which is behind there, which is probably really rusty as well. And then we can hopefully start putting this car back together, kidney bowls, rear arches, sills, etc. And then obviously get this done. Bada bing, bada boom. Catch you in the next episode.